Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Outlook for April through July 2018. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next few minutes, we'll talk about the recent weather conditions, how it has affected drought and the current state of the fuels, and also the expected weather and fire potential from April through July. Looking at the recent weather trend for temperature for the month of March, temperatures were largely near to below normal across the Great Basin and most largely below normal across parts of central and western Nevada. Precipitation over the last month has also been well above normal over parts of the Sierra into far western Nevada and then stretching across northern Nevada into northwest Utah and eastern Idaho, with below normal precipitation over the last 30 days over southern and eastern areas of the Great Basin. Looking at the overall percent of average precipitation since the beginning of the water year, October 1st, 2017, and you can see over much of the Great Basin we've seen below to well below normal precipitation since October. The only areas of the Great Basin that have seen near or just above normal precipitation have been the central Idaho mountains into parts of far eastern Idaho and western Wyoming. How this translates into our current snowpack: we have seen generally near to just above normal snowpack really all season across central Idaho into Wyoming, as most of the storm tracks earlier in the season through the present time have really targeted the north. However, over the last 4 to 6 weeks, we have seen more of an increase in precipitation over the southern areas of the Great Basin, so we have seen the very bleak snowpack we saw going into the month of February increase a little bit more significantly over the last couple of months and is now between about 60 and 80% of normal across much of Nevada, Utah, and the Sierra Nevada mountains. However, if we look at snow water equivalent a little bit differently, first looking at the Sierra into western Nevada, this bottom lower left image shows the snowpack for the Mount Rose ski area. And looking at the lines, the blue line is normal conditions throughout the winter season for snow water equivalent, and the green line is where we are in 2018. So you can see that we're generally just above normal now really in the Sierra and Tahoe Basin. You can see the red line, which is the snowpack we had last year at this time, which was again obviously well above normal. Now looking at northern Utah, this top right image, you can see again the average line is the blue line, but however, even though the current snowpack reading shows about 60 to 70% of average snowpack, you can see by the green line that the snowpack is really well below normal looking at the conditions since 1981. And we're seeing those same conditions in southeast Utah, again well below normal snowpack despite the snowpack numbers really looking like it's only a small number below average. Now if we take all the recent weather conditions into account, you can see where the current drought conditions are across the Great Basin. And again, with the very dry weather we saw really much of the year since October and really even to parts of last summer, we have seen drought redevelop and intensify across much of Utah, parts of the Arizona Strip, and into far southern eastern Nevada. And it's really Utah where we're seeing this severe to extreme drought continue to intensify with those drier conditions. We do have abnormally dry conditions now that have returned to Nevada and into southern Idaho, with now some moderate drought starting to develop into the central Sierra. Looking at the image on the right, the drought outlook going through the end of June, we are expecting the drought to either continue or intensify over much of Utah, the Arizona Strip, and southern and eastern Nevada, with really a very little change expected for the rest of Idaho into northern Nevada. Now we'll look at our current state of the fuels and how the recent weather has affected those fuels. Currently looking at our 1,000-hour fuel moistures, we do have drier conditions over southern areas of the Great Basin, with higher fuel moisture as you go further north, again where that storm track has been targeting, and also that's where the cooler temperatures have been. 100-hour fuel moistures show this same trend, but we are seeing some critically dry areas over parts of southern Nevada and the Arizona Strip and southeast Utah, and again, as you move further north, most of the fuel moistures are above 15%. 10-hour fuel moistures, more representative of our grasses, show critically dry conditions in southern areas, which would be expected with the warmer and drier conditions that they have been experiencing really much of the winter. And they get a little bit higher fuel moisture as you go further north, especially into northern Utah, western Wyoming, and central Idaho. Now we'll look at the current state of La Nina and El Nino and what we can expect from that as we move into the coming months. If we look at the recent animations showing sea surface temperature anomalies, or how far above or below normal the sea surface temperatures are, this will show us the current state of La Nina and El Nino. So currently you can see from the early part of the video very cool temperatures showing the blue areas off the South American coast. This is indicative of a weak La Nina that has been in place. However, we are expecting, and you can start to see some of that warming already occurring as we get later in that video off the South American coast. We are expecting those sea surface temperatures to warm, and most likely we'll see neutral conditions as we go into the summer. Now, neutral conditions don't really mean a whole lot for the Great Basin. We'll probably see a little bit more variability in the weather as we move through the summer, meaning we could potentially see very hot and dry periods, followed by periods of thunderstorms or even windy conditions. This spaghetti plot of lines shows an image indicating the forecast models for the transition of El Nino and La Nina. And you can see there are quite a few different models, but most of them are showing the same general trend. Here are current conditions on the left, and you can see the line first starts in the La Nina range down near -1, and it will continue increasing, or at least that's the general trend of all the models as we go through the summer months. The neutral range is between these two solid black lines, so we can generally see that most of the models are predicting at least a return to neutral conditions, with some outliers indicating other possibilities. Now, if we put all of this together that we've seen so far, what are we expecting to happen from here? Well, the first piece of the puzzle not only is what we're coming into from our conditions, but also what will happen with the weather over the next few months. This image shows what we are expecting for April, May, June, and July for both temperatures, the middle row here, and precipitation, the bottom row. If we start in April, we're seeing still warm conditions, which is the general trend really through all of July for the southern half of the Great Basin, showing above normal temperatures. We may have some cool periods as we move through April with storms continuing to target the northern areas of the Great Basin. And that's indicated also on the precipitation field on the lower left, showing possibly near to above normal precipitation in the north with drier conditions down south. As we move into May, we see this dry signature now start to drift northward across much of Nevada and Utah, with very warm temperatures in place as well. This drier trend may start to trend a little bit further north up into northern Nevada and Idaho as we move into June with those warm conditions, and also we'll start to see the development of the monsoon down into the southwest. As we move into July, we should start to see that moisture really settle into much of the southern areas of the Great Basin, mostly Utah, the Arizona Strip, and southern Nevada, with drier conditions further north and again those warm temperatures. So again, we're seeing this transition of wetness to dryness in the north and the continuing drying over much of the southern half of the Great Basin until the monsoon starts in June. So if we put all these pieces together, here is our current outlook for the next several months. Normal fire conditions are expected for April, again still coming off of this cooler period in March, and then also transitioning to maybe still some unsettled weather in April. We'll again keep kind of a cap on our fire potential, at least for the month of April. As we move towards May and we start to see that warmer and drier pattern materialize over Nevada and Utah, we are expecting above normal conditions to set in for fire potential for southeast Utah and also for western and northwest Nevada. And for northwest Nevada, this would, again, similar to last year, be more indicative of an early start to the season, mainly on our lower elevation grasses that will dry out rapidly. Again, we have a lot of carryover from 2017 still, and we've had new growth on some of our burn areas already through this winter season, so we may see fires not only in areas that haven't burned, but in areas that we already saw fires last year. We could see fire potential still remain high this year. We did have a storm in mid-March that brought some lower elevation snowfall to parts of the Sierra Front, which kept snow on the ground for several days, deep snow even in the valley locations, and this did compact some of the fuels, but anywhere really east of the immediate Sierra Front will have very little impact from the grasses from last year. As we move through June and July, we will continue to see above normal fire potential spread north in Utah, especially in the mid to high elevations where we're seeing more significant drought and very dry conditions. And then we'll see the area in Nevada spread all the way across northern Nevada into northwest Utah, possibly up into southern Idaho. And this is mostly in the lower elevation sage and grasses. In July, as the monsoon sets in, we will lose that above normal fire potential in the south, but we will continue to see above normal potential over northern and western Nevada, northern Utah, and it may even spread further north. So that concludes our briefing for this monthly outlook. Check back next month for the latest updates.